just from one of my presentations, and it became something in demand, and people collect bouquets of them now and share them with friends. But what I have people do with that flower pen is so easily they can lift it up and appreciate it. And I let them know I make each of these personally. I fill them with love and blessings for whoever does receive that pen. And it's a reminder of our time together. But when I have them hold up that flower pen, they can see that it's beautiful, that it has its own color. They can see its own fragrance, its own spark that it brings to the world. And then I have them look at each other and recognize that within one another. And then ultimately within themselves, and that flower pen becomes a reminder of that for them. And when they hold up the flower pens, I'll have some people drop them down and notice that they're still holding that space, but the room's a little less bright. The garden's a little less fragrant because they're hiding. They're still holding the space. And so I really encourage people to lift the pens up, to lift themselves up, so that we all can enjoy the richness of who they are and their gifts that they bring to the world.
Well, that's fantastic. And you said, at least I said in your introduction, that you have a private practice. What kind of private practice do you have?
Great. I have a private coaching practice, and actually I'm in transition. So I also had a financial practice. I was in the financial industry for about 15 years. So I actually had two different private practices that I manage and run. And I've recently made the transition to retire from that and fully transition into this empowerment work that I currently do. So the private practice now that I have and am able to dedicate my full attention to is with your purpose-driven practice. And that's where I have my coaching and speaking and my private VIP coaching that I do.
But it's interesting because many women really, even the young women of today, really don't understand money, and they don't understand finances, and they don't understand what credit card debt is, and they don't understand all the things that, you know, they're going to face in the next many years. And so I would think, even though you're not doing that line of work anymore, that as someone who is experienced in the financial world, that you are of great resource to the women that you deal with, because they need help, you know.
Yes.
I'm so happy that for once many young women are figuring out what it is they have to do, and they're not depending on their spouse. I know that in my generation, it wasn't me because I always worked, but women really had no idea of what was going on in the finances. They had no idea what their husbands made, what they had, and when the husband passed away, they were really at a loss. I know my own mom never wrote a check until my dad passed away. Luckily for me, you know, as I said, I was experienced. I paid all our bills. I knew what was going on. But I think that's an education that many women still need to have. And so I'm glad you have that background. But what does empowering others do for you? I mean, how does that help you, and why do you find such a passion in that?
And that goes back to my journey. As you were sharing earlier about people that have overcome and kind of what's got them through. Part of what got me through were conversations I would have with God. And one of the conversations I would have with him frequently was, Rebecca, you need to go stretch in this way, or heal this area, or confront this, or have this conversation. And to me, that was a really hard thing for me to do, and scary, and I didn't want to do it. And I didn't care enough about myself at that point to do it for me. But what I cared enough about was I didn't want another little girl to experience what I had experienced. And so for me, as I was stretched in those ways, I would say, okay, God, here's the deal. I will do this mean, hard, horrible thing you're asking me to do if it can help someone else, if it can be used for good, if it can make someone else's life a little bit easier where they don't experience what I experienced. And that was a big part of what helped me on those journey, was really my care for others not experience what I had experienced, or to have it be used for good and in a positive way. And eventually I grew to where I also wanted to grow and heal and move forward in a positive way for myself too. But it actually started with wanting to do that for others. And I
Well,
saw,
they say,
Mhm.
really, Rebecca, they say that when you give to others, you get back, and
Mm,
that you should be doing the things you do in life because you want to do them, and not because, boy, you're going to get payback in return. You do get payback, but you shouldn't
correct.
be disappointed when you're not, because you should be doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Now, I know there are people listening to this saying, "Are you kidding?" I mean, when you've got to run a business, you've got to look at the numbers, and you've got to make sure everything is in sync, and you can't let people get away with things, and your employees have to be doing what they're supposed to do, and your customers have got to be this and that. But in reality, if you go at it, whatever it is, yes, you have to run your business well, and you have to know your numbers, and you have to know what services and products you're providing that people want, and all of those things. But in the end, you've got to be doing this because it's what you want to do. And sometimes you're going to get bitten, and sometimes you're not. And I think that's a very clear message that people in today's society are really beginning to understand and learn. But, I want to ask you if there's anyone else that has greatly impacted you and inspired you to step out in a bigger way in how you empower women.
I, my grandmothers have been a really, really big part of that journey. One of my grandmothers, another grandmother that I have up in Washington, she's no longer with us, but she was someone that also let me get to know her as a woman and shared that part of my life. And one of the things that she really did in my life was plant the seeds to really take care of myself, because I was really good at giving to everyone else. That fed me. I appreciated that, but I would give to the point of depletion. In the highs in life and the lows in life, she would always remind me, every phone conversation she would end with, "Rebecca, I want, I can go at any time. My health is very fragile," and her health was. And I'd lean in and say, "Yeah, Grandma, I know." She goes, "I want you to make me a promise. Will you promise to take care of my granddaughter?" And that was me. And I would always promise. And she would always remind me in the highs in life and the lows in life to give myself time and space and energy to process on a cellular level. In the highs and celebrations, I didn't always listen because I was feeling great. In the lows, I was better at listening. And as I learned to apply that in my life, it had a big impact. And when I've been able to share her wisdom with person after person, I saw it create this ripple effect. She was one person, did not have 1,000 friends or 5,000 friends on Facebook or any of those other mediums we have today. But she made a profound impact in my life, and I have been able to share her wisdom with countless friends, people on the train that I meet, or airports that I meet people in when they're at that moment. When in my financial practice, someone's spouse had just passed away, and as you were sharing, they're suddenly have all these financial things they have to deal with that they have never dealt with before, and they're just trying to breathe. And being able to meet them with that wisdom that my grandmother shared has been a great gift. And to me, I see that and I think, wow, just by being who we are, sharing our heart fully, sharing the wisdom and the gifts we have, one by one, heart by heart, it does make a big difference, and it does create a ripple effect. I have people coming back to me that they have passed that wisdom on and shared it back to me.
Well, that's super. It makes me wonder, though, how you had such an abusive relationship growing up when you had such wonderful grandparents. I mean, your parents came out of these women, and yet you endured all of this pain growing up. And so it's kind of like a dichotomy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is. And what I found very interesting is sometimes the healthiest and deepest relationships I had were actually with my step grandmothers. And that grandmother that I just shared with you about, Grandma Quinn, is actually my step grandmother. And my grandma Gracio, that moved in with us, is also my step grandmother. So I just think it's interesting when we go through life that we can choose the relationships that we have, and we all can invest in them in different ways. And just because perhaps there is a wounded or unhealthy part of the family tree, it doesn't mean everyone in the family tree doesn't have value and can't be part of your life.
Well, that's true. That's very true. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? I mean, do you have a website that people can go to?
I do. It's www.yourpurposedrivenpractice.com. And for those that do want to have a conversation, if you go to that same website, www.yourpurposedrivenpractice.com, you will see a box that you can click to set up a time to talk, and I would be happy to do so.
Hey, that's wonderful. That's fabulous. Well, I want to ask you, we're just at our final 2 minutes. Do you have anything that you would like to share with us quickly today and as a final message?
Sure. What I would really encourage each of you to do today is to find a moment that you can pause and listen and just see, is this who I want to be? Is this the life I want to live? And I encourage you to listen to the response. And if you find there's something that you're wanting to be a little bit different, I invite you with your next breath, make the decision that you are making that shift and you're actually stepping into it. I really want to encourage you to live your life on purpose and with purpose.
Well, that's wonderful. I really want to thank you for being with us today. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Women in Business, the show that brings you women entrepreneurs and senior managers. I hope you enjoyed our show today. Please connect with me on Facebook and Twitter. Be sure to download my ebook, Life Lessons from an SOB, on my website, spunkyoldbroad.com, where you can find information on my speeches, coaching, and resources. You can also email me at GailCarson13, that's Gayle, at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and thanks, Rebecca, for being with us today.
Thank you.